let's begin. Let's re-begin.
All right.
The subject that was shared with me for me to speak about is emotional connection and branding. And that's why I brought up the point about TikTok and Instagram, because if there's anything that requires or anything that seems to bring out a lot of emotionality or a lot of emotional responses, are these two platforms. Some are more purposeful in the way they use the platforms. I'm one of them. Michelle is also one of them. But there are others who just enjoy it for what it is, and rightly so, like Daniel, following people, following celebrities, sharing their own personal experiences. There's a whole lot of emotional undertones to that. Now, if you notice, one is a bit more rational and one is a bit more emotional. And I'd like us to deconstruct that response. Now, when we do what we do because I think you would know this. Does everyone know what left brain and right brain is?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, tell me what you think.
Students.
Hello.
Yes, Hartina.
Hi, Titi.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. No, I think every time someone talks about left brain or right brain, it's always about the comparison between approaching something with either rationality or the other part of the brain. It's more something is one part is more logical and the other part is more like creative, heavy, something like that.
Yes, absolutely, spot on. And that's important because as we go into, if we just look into our responses, there are some that are kind of spoken by the left brain, others that are spoken by the right brain. And to your point, with just a bit of detail, the left brain is very analytical and orderly, and it's thinking in words. So when you get into subjects or conversations that seem to be more towards logic or sequencing or linear thinking or numbers or facts, and as I said, thinking in words, is pretty much what the left brain is about. Conversely, there's also the right brain. There's also the right brain. To your point, it's much more creative. And it's very visual, it's very intuitive. So these are the places where our minds seem to fly so much more loosely and so much more fluidly, where imagination takes place, where we think quite widely, or holistic thinking. There are no charts or cells or rows or columns to deal with. It's just really fluid. Arts is in the right brain space. Rhythm is the right brain space. Anything that's nonverbal, we look at facial expressions and have a point of view on what that is our right brain thinking. Feelings and even daydreaming. While a lot of traditional folks think that daydreaming is a waste of time, actually, daydreaming is a very clear function of how the right brain works. It is just very fluid and just let images flow. And the reason why I brought up this point about left brain and right brain is because it is very important in the way it is clearly a demonstration of what our responses are, but it's also something that you be mindful of when you create the stimuli, that there are two sides of the mind that work. And when they work, there's no such thing as left brain or right brain dominant. Even I am corrected by this particular piece of medical literature. When we think in numbers or we think in facts, we think more often we think that we're left brain dominant. If we look at pictures or we look at color, we think that we're right brain dominant. But in fact, what's happening is that both the left brain and the right brain actually work together. They're tied together. They are not. There's no such thing as actual dominance. So when we think that certain personality traits or certain individual preferences or certain learning styles are speak of whether we are left brain dominant or right brain dominant. Actually, it's not true. Those are just personality traits, those are just preferences, and those are just learning styles. But in fact, the two sides of the brain are different and they have to work together. Let me kind of give you an example of what that means. Let's just talk about motherhood. And I think we can all think of motherhood conceptually. Now, motherhood, what is a common view of motherhood, regardless of socioeconomics or gender or religion or culture, is that the mother is always an inspirer, a nurturer, a provider, a teacher, a mentor, an inspirer, both an inspirer and an aspirer. So that's what motherhood is. But when we get into a mother will always want to take care of her kid, will always have the kid first. Now, that is the kind of the emotional space that the mother is in. But then, whenever she makes decisions when it comes to nutrition or makes decisions in terms of child rearing, that's where the left brain has to come in. Can I afford it? Can I? Will I be able to? Do I need a very rigid plan of action? Do I need to get into a SWOT analysis on how to manage this kid for the next 5 years? So if you notice, both areas of decision are very important areas, and not one will dominate the other. They have to work together for decisions to be made for the child. Why is this important? As I said, when one, they work together, but also in any response, and you test yourself, in any response that you make, both your left brain and your right brain has to be convinced. I want to go to that party because it's fun, okay? But how much time can I spend? How far is it? Can I afford the time, or can I afford the money to go to that party? And then you make a decision, right? So it's right brain and left brain working together. Now, that's about the response. And while we know clearly whenever it comes to the left brain is much more easy to convince. It's all about the math, it's all about logic, it's all about sequence, and we can all put that in one nice Excel sheet, or we can all have a very clear mental organization on how to make that work. But emotions are so much more difficult to measure. And in fact, there is a particular study where any decision that's made, any decision for any brand relationship or any relationship where the matter is made, and it's influenced pretty much by 60% of what your emotion is saying, right? The 40% is all managed by the left brain. The 60% is all managed by the emotion. And this is important because we are, after all, human. And to use this quote, emotional connections happen because they're human, and we're built for this connection, wired for them, and rely on them to live a rich and meaningful life. All of us, regardless of race, creed, gender, culture, religion, or whatever not, we all live by this statement. Yep. So that's the response part. Now, this is where any response obviously requires a stimulus. Any outcome requires input. And in the business that we're in, we all shape stimuli. We all navigate stimuli to be able to build the desired response. Do we want people to drink more Coke? And if we do, we have to provide the right response. Do we want people to go on Lazada more? And if they do, again, we have to provide both the left brain and the right brain stimuli or inputs. Now, for any brand, and think of yourself as a brand, right? For any brand, to make a statement or to provide a set of stimuli, it all has to come from a place of authenticity. It cannot come from a place where you have absolutely no credibility. For example, Shopee. Shopee as a place to shop, Shopee as the best online marketplace. If they claim that they are the best, they have to provide reasons or to have to provide evidence that they are the best. That's on the left brain side. But on the right brain side, they have to provide evidence to be able to say that the moment I get into Shopee, I'm going through a very interesting, very exciting, very fluid, very multi-dimensional shopping experience. That's the right brain side. So for us to come for the key message here is if you are a brand, you can make a claim, but make sure that your claim has credibility. Make sure that it's coming from a place of authenticity. Make sure that the claim that you make is something that you can truly deliver. Yep. Now, what is the other interesting area? If we really want, besides the place of authenticity, it also has to be connected to the times. It has to be connected to how people feel, not just of your brand, but of the environment that she is in, or the environment, or the conditions that are taking place around us, or circumstances, or dynamics. And let me share with you some of the trends that are taking place at the moment, to which any brand, for as long as it is a place of credibility, that any brand can latch onto. Anxiety. I think we're all feeling, we're all in the same place at the moment. We're all in a lockdown place. We're all in a place where we're all staying at home and figure out the best that we can manage. And it is this space of anxiety is resonating across all of us. So this is one particular trend that's taking place at the moment. And if a brand would be able to alleviate this anxiety relative to the conditions of that anxiety, then it is a place that the brand can take. Now, this is a very sensitive subject because there are certainly some brands that can work within this space of anxiety, some that just cannot. For example, if you're in the automotive category, there is no way that I can connect an automotive brand to the space of anxiety. It just doesn't work, right? But if I'm in a space of healthcare, let's say I am a vitamin brand or a milk brand, or a nutrition brand. This is a place that I can potentially take. Yeah. Here's another trend that's taking place: fempowerment or female empowerment. Now the rules of gender are breaking down. There is no such thing as, or there is still such a thing as a traditional role of man and woman, but now with equality taking so much more of an exponential pace, fempowerment is now the name of today. And this is where in a household, we're seeing an increasing number of women in the household making household decisions. And this is something, again, that a brand can take for as long as the dots are connected between what the brand is and what fempowerment is. Connected families. If any of you, I think some of you, but definitely some of you are on TikTok, you're seeing a lot of TikTok people doing all these dances with their parents, or a lot of groups or a lot of families probably right now in different houses by virtue of circumstance, but are connected through WhatsApp or connected through Google Hangouts. So we're seeing technology aiding, enabling, and in fact, connecting families so much more despite the limitations of physical distance or despite the limitations of geography. And if a brand can, again, latch on that reality, great, for as long as it's credible. Another is convenience economy, and this is far more straightforward and far more resonant as well in today's space, where we're seeing a whole lot of deliveries having to be part of our lives, or a whole lot of online shopping having to be part of our lives to replace the old normal. Can your brand be part of this convenience economy? That's a question depending on what the brand is. Gender rules, and I mentioned this in relation to fempowerment. The gender rules have changed. Back in the West, I'm not sure if it applies in our part of the world. Back in the West, there's no more, it's not just about male, female. There are various dimensions of male and various dimensions of female. And I personally am confused with it. I don't even know what these definitions are. But now it's really not about gender anymore. Gender has now become a very blurred fence. It is now about roles, and it's all about making sure that these roles can be taken care of by the individual rather than it being a sweeping generalization of gender. I got, and this is the most interesting and actually the most resonant that's taking place in a country like Malaysia, where religion is not just in the space of tradition. Religion has, in fact, is in fact now entrenched in every socioeconomic filter, and also in the area of modernity. We're seeing technology aiding the nurturing of religion among individuals. Case in point, last year, Maxis came up with an interesting app, and it was meant for devotees who go for prayers, but are deaf and would not be able to relate very much to what is going on as prayers take place. So what Maxis did was create an app where it's able to identify sound waves, and the sound waves obviously come in and out relative to how the prayers are taking place. And these sound waves come in a burst of colors to be able to also kind of visualize the extent or the depth or the intensity of that moment during prayers. And this helped a lot for those who attend prayers but are audibly challenged. And that's what iGod is. And it's a lot of interplay of technology with religion. And lastly, modern families. Now, this is in contrast to what we know as a tradition, our core family, mother, father, child, and also is in contrast to the extended family, grandmother, grandfather, aunties and uncles, and our cousins. Modern families would mean how we extend affinities towards those who are actually family to us, our friends, our closely knit friends, even doctors on the net, even advisories online. They are now what we call modern families. It is not just about the core of what the family is as we know it, but it is about a much wider spectrum of a support system, which we conveniently and rightfully label as our modern family. Now, I just talked to you about what the trends are today. Now, these trends are very volatile and change very quickly over time. But these are also very powerful insights that you can use when you build communications for your brand. For as long as there is a credibility that you can attach to your brand to this particular trend. Yeah. And some of the ways that you're able to do that are the following. And just make sure that some of this are fundamental, and some of this are relative to the brand you handle. First of all, as a brand, you must have an identifiable personality. Who are you? Because on that note, I would know whether I should have a relationship with you or not, whether you can be my friend, whether you can be someone who I can trust, or someone who can be my companion. And this can be generated through a very clear color property, or a certain language, or a culture that you champion, or a set of behaviors that you constantly demonstrate. Let's take the Coke as an example. I think Coke is a brand that we all know. In fact, in a particular study on Coke, if there's anything that has the 100% brand love, it's a brand called Coca-Cola, even in Malaysia. Now, what is the big color that we know the moment we see Coke? It's
Right.
red. Red actually means actually I forgot what it means, but it means a certain energy, a certain fiery energy, and it's a very positive energy, right? There's a certain vigor to that brand, to that color that you attribute to Coke. The language is very young, very today. The culture is very uh, uh, very now. And the behavior is also the whole set of behaviors is very agile, is very fluid, is very inclusive, and it's very for everyone. That is the Coke brand, and it's been consistently built and it's been consistently protected over the years. Now, do we want to have a relationship with that guy? His name is Coke. That depends on you. But I had a relationship with Coke based on those behaviors, and I still love it. I don't drink it now, but I still love it. Now, next is modern day social proof, or simply put, word of mouth. We tend to believe our friends more than what brands say. We tend to believe influencers who we look up to more than what the brands say. And this is what modern day social proof is. And this is important for a brand. The moment you put yourself forth, you need to have believers around you to be able to enroll or generate more believers. And when you create your own communication ecosystem for your brand, you ask yourself the question, who are my first set of believers? And they can become your fan base, if you will. They can become a fan base that can create a concentric circle of more believers. Emotional intelligence and technology. Who among you has gone into TripAdvisor or Trivago? Anyone?
TripAdvisor, yes.
Okay. Who? Sorry, I can't see who spoke because I'm on the presentation deck. Who spoke?
It's Titi. It's Hartina.
Titi. Okay, Titi.
Yep.
You clicked on you clicked TripAdvisor one day.
Yeah.
Okay. When you click into TripAdvisor, did you check on any country that you want to go to, or any place you want to go to?
Usually a country.
Okay, which country did you connect with? Did you check?
Italy.
Italy. Okay. After you clicked on Italy, did you leave the page?
Do I leave the page?
I mean, did you leave the TripAdvisor page? Did you go somewhere else?
After I get the information that I want to get.
Did you go to another website?
Rarely. I don't think so. Maybe just for the pictures, but most of the information, I think, most of the feedback and the reviews are enough for me. So other jobs is just to get more pictures about the country. That's all.
Okay. Did you go to any space after that? Did you go to search? Did you go to Facebook? Did you go somewhere else after you logged up with TripAdvisor?
For me, not really. No, rarely.
Okay. Here's what could have happened, and it's happened quite a number of times. After you go to TripAdvisor and you checked in Italy, you would have gone to another site. Not necessarily another TripAdvisor, but something else. But as you go there, you will see TripAdvisor following you and saying, "Oh, you haven't really clicked on You haven't really confirmed that you're going to Italy. Would you like to try these other markets? Or they would have said, oh, you've checked on the hotel in Italy. Would you like to check these other hotels since you haven't closed the deal yet? They will follow you, right? They will follow you at least 3 times in any place that you go the moment you clicked on a TripAdvisor. It's the same thing for Lazada. You go to Lazada, you look into a particular item. You look into a particular item. Let's say you look for a toothbrush. After you click and you don't buy it, and you go to another site, there's going to be another Lazada thing that's going to follow you, probably related to a toothbrush. Maybe give you a toothbrush holder. But for as long as you don't close the deal, it will follow you. And that's what emotional intelligence and technology is about. Technology will follow you, and they will be as emotionally intelligent as possible, so it's not intrusive. Everyone will want to make a conversion. Everyone will want to make a sale, but it will do so intelligently in the context of where you are, in the context also of what you originally wanted to check. And technology does that. There are a lot of mechanisms at the back end that will follow you until you make a purchase decision. Now, try that out. If you haven't really noticed it, you will after this conversation. You click on Lazada and you click on Shopee. You don't close the sale. It will follow you as you travel the net. Lastly, storytelling. As I said, let's kind of revisit where we are so far. We said you will respond. We talked about your responses. We said that the response has 2 components. There's a left brain contribution to that response, but there's also a right brain contribution to that response, right? There's a logical layer to it, and there's an emotional layer to it. And more often than not, that decision is the tipping point for that decision is usually emotional in nature. Okay, that's chapter 1. Chapter 2, we look at the stimuli for us to be able to get the desired emotional response that we want for any of the brands or for yourself as a brand. The emotional stimuli has to start from, number 1, a place of authenticity. Now, when I say a place of authenticity, it is something that you can credibly own. It is not something that you pretend to own. The moment you pretend to own something, it will be noticed, and you will not have any conversation with any consumer ever. Okay. Now, that's the first place. But you can also surround yourself with a trend that's ongoing at the moment, and we mentioned about 8 or 9 trends that can help you, from something as real and today as anxiety to something as also real and today as modern families. And you can latch on to any of these trends depending on where your brand sits. Yeah? We've talked about making sure that when you do this, you have to make sure that if you have a place of credibility, if you have a very clear personality, if you're very clear culture and behavior, then as a brand, you are identifiable. Build your word of mouth around you, again, to make sure that the influencers or the celebrities or the regular people who speak of you are representative of what the brand is. We've talked about layering it with technology so that there's attention around you at least 3 times. But the most important thing that ties this all together is, how do you tell your story? What is the story that you tell, and how do you tell it? Yeah. And these are some of the pointers on how to tell the story based on some US study. Let's look at some consumer facts first, and then tell you how to respond to those consumer facts. One consumer fact, and this is also us in this part of the world. We consume so many digital words in a day. And if that is the case, then make sure that if you tell your story, make it short. Make sure that your headline speaks. Now, be careful of clickbait, but make sure your headline speaks. Number two, a bulk of us, 92% of us, want brands to make ads that feel like a story. So forget about the days of yore in the 90s or the 80s where we always have a before and after. Forget about an announcer, kind of a host telling you, saying, introducing Breeze, introducing XYZ, introducing ABC. That doesn't work anymore. What works is make sure that you have a beginning, a conflict in the middle, and a happy ending, a story, right? But make sure that it is also linear and expresses a very clear, make sure that it expresses a very clear narrative that all the dots are connecting. Lastly, we all have very short attention spans. And so we process the story much faster. And right now, images tend to work better rather than words. So when we tell our story, we don't just tell, and we use the images for more compelling content. When you do all of that, this is what happens. What happens on the left is that the story activates parts of the brain that makes you want to listen, right? And turn that story into your own. And it's called neural coupling. Neural coupling. What happens also is mirroring. They just don't experience that activity they don't just experience their own brain activity. They also senses or mirrors the brain activity of the speaker. On the right, dopamine gets released. And then if the story is well put together, if the story is strong enough, and the emotion comes in. And when the emotion comes in, it just becomes much more memorable. Yep. And on the right, so the story said, the emotion comes in, and cortex activity takes place. So when the facts come in, there are two areas of the brain that are activated. So when this gets activated, it connects the emotion to the logic, and therefore a decision is made. Yeah, that's essentially what happens when you receive the story. Now, this is where content marketing comes in, and this is where the marketing comes in. And I suppose this will be helpful as you create your own marketing and communication ecosystems. Keep in mind, and this applies also to this to Malaysia, social is very strong in this market. Social, videos, blogs, in-person events, mobile content, these are all very strong tactics in Malaysia. And it's a matter of figuring out how best to use this relative to the big story you want to tell. And for you to be able to get results, and this, when we talk about better results, these are business results. The first thing that you need to do, the distribution and retargeting, these are all kind of back-end performance marketing things. And these are not the conversation, it's not the conversation we're having today. But what starts here is quality content. And your quality content has to be clear. Your quality content has to be guided by what I've told you much earlier. And it comes down to this. Make sure that you have the facts before you. You have logic before you. When you make a promise, you have a very clear reason to believe. That's the logic working. But on the right, which is the tipping point, is your emotion. What set of behaviors, what culture, what personality, what insight can you latch onto to be able to build your emotional response or your desired emotional response? And that's what's important. So it comes down to build the content first, work out the distribution later, and then all this will come down to desired business results. Right. Now, that ends my conversation. I'm hoping that at this stage, I would like us to have questions.
Okay, I'm going to go first, and then I hope the rest of the students will follow through. you mentioned authentic, right? Authentic and all the other elements that supported someone's brand.
Uh-huh.
We can see social media. Look at Instagram for an example. So we can see a lot of people post a certain things to brand themselves a certain way, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're authentic to that whatever that they're trying to portray. So what are your takes on that? And I know that it is what do you call this? This is a look and image is important, but when it comes to personal branding, what are your takes on
I'm sorry, doctor. I'm not in touch. Sorry, I kind of broke down. The connection broke down a bit. Would you mind stating your question again?
Oh, okay, yeah, sure. You can just call me Nisa, by the way. No,
Ah,
but
okay.
referring to your mention about authenticity,
Uh-huh.
that if you want to make a claim, it has to be from an authentic, place or site, yes. So
Yes.
there's a lot of you see on social media, people posting things to brand themselves, their own personal branding.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that they're authentic to what is being posted.
Yes.
It's So what are your takes on that? On lack of authenticity, but people do believe that that is, yeah.
Okay. So we're translating this to individuals, and that's great, right? We
Yeah.
translating this place of authenticity to people. But in the end, people may believe you, right? If you are consistent with it, people may believe you, and you may even believe the personality that you're creating for yourself. But if it's not authentic, it will come out sooner or later. It is not something that can be sustained forever. If you can build this personality of, let's say, you being a quirky, um, over the top, therefore interesting personality. But if that is not you, you will get tired. You will not be able to continue it. So,
Okay.
but if you're able to do that with some element of personality that is true to you, let's say, for example, that you may be quirky, but quirky because you just take things the way they are, or you're quirky because you are just very clumsy, and that just happens every day for you. And you make that your truth. You make that your human truth. You will have a following because it is authentic. But if you're quirky because you like the latest things, that you like the latest travel, that you like the latest goods, but you can't sustain it, it will die. So
Right.
the place of authenticity is also a place of survival. You will have longevity if you are holding to a real truth. You will not have longevity if you are pretending.
Right.
Now, I remember earlier, I think it was Danya who told me she plays the ukulele, and if that is her truth, people will follow her, right? If this is something that she's able to develop, and it becomes her brand, and people can follow her progress, and then she becomes a world class ukulele champion, whatever that may be,
I'll
then
pray that for her.
it's real, right? It's real and it's true and it's endearing, and it's sustainable.
There are some celebrities where their image has been crafted a certain way to be presented on social media. But obviously they were talking about celebrities and perhaps politicians where the authenticity has been tapped into by these professional social media specialists who actually craft how they should present themselves on social media and so on and so forth. But I think I'm gonna open the questions to the students now.
No, but I like to dwell on that. I mean, just to dwell on that particular point.
Yeah.
And that's why, what is her name? What is the name of the singer? Let's say Yuna.
Yuna, yeah.
Yeah, Yuna, up to this day, is famous. Yuna, up to this day, has a following, and we're seeing her progress from an indie singer to now being part of the American music industry. Why? Because she's authentic. Uh, who she is as an indie singer is still the same person as she is today. Um, she is what will I say, the modern Malay who has a modern outlook in life, but is still grounded in her roots, and that is endearing. And she has never left that. She has not become very traditional Malay. She has not become over the top Western. She is what she is, and she kept to it, and that has become her identifiable personality. That has become her language. That has also defined her behavior, and that is also the basis to which she has a following, because she's been doing that consistently. Right? And then you see some personalities who are, over the top, and I won't mention them because I can't.
Okay.
So over the top, so in your face, so good, so my life is good. I go to this place and I go to that place, and I got so many followings, but they die because it's not real. It's not true. In fact, they may not even have a following of admirers. They now probably have a following of detractors. Either they have a following of detractors, or they're just the people just don't care about them anymore. Now, the learnings that we have of celebrities and the learnings that we have of influencers, they all apply to two things. They apply to us as people, right? We are a brand by themselves. We have our concentric circle of followers ourselves. With or without Instagram, or with or without Facebook, we have our own concentric circle of followers. But this principle also applies to brands. The brands like Coke, brands like Apple, whatever brands like KitKat, they also operate in the same principles. They also must have personalities and behaviors. They all have to make sure that they are true to themselves before they talk about themselves. If you tell me that Coca-Cola is a cocktail drink, no, you're not. I won't believe you. If you tell me that Apple is the next best, Apple is the next best thing in computers, I may believe it, I may not, but based on its history, it has been, so I'll believe it. But it has to come from a place of believability, and that is so fundamental.
Right. I think Amarina.
I have one question from the student, Zulaika. Mr. Neal, she was asking about what do you think of brands that use the elements of empathy for their sales?
I have only one question for that. Is it credible to the brand? Because if it is not credible to the brand, it will look so fake and so insincere. It's not good for the brand, right? Let me see. Let me think of an example. Something that. Okay. There are two things, right? One is empathy and one is sympathy. So sympathy is I feel for you. I feel your pain. I feel your tension. Let me do something for you. Empathy is I don't need to show you my sympathy, but I will show you. But I understand your pain, and I understand your tension, and therefore I will do something even without me having to show you my sympathy. I will just do something, right? So between sympathy and empathy is a bit more intimate and a bit more personal, and it's a very dangerous territory for a brand to get into. Because it's fragile, right? There must be a personal relationship first between a brand and a person for you to be able to have that sympathy and therefore make it believable. But empathy is a great thing to be in. I can help you. I can alleviate your pain without me having to be so highly dramatic about it or highly pretending to be sympathetic about it. And let's say a brand like Maxis, or probably also a brand like DG in this day and age, right? Something as simple as Maxis didn't have to say, "Oh, I feel so sorry for you because you're all staying at home and things are difficult," and so that they don't need to say that. But a simple icon, a very simple icon that they had immediately after the lockdown, which is a stay-at-home icon on their phone, on the phone when the Maxis logo comes out. was a simple moment of empathy, and it felt good. Now, was it credible to the brand? Yes, it was credible to the brand. Was it believable? Yes, it was believable. Was it sympathetic? Actually, without them saying, "I feel sad for you," you felt that they were sympathetic, right? Was it very empathetic? Yes, it was very empathetic. So again, empathy works, and it works. It has to work in a very elegant way for you to be able to make sure that you get a positive response. But empathy does work, but it takes a lot of work to get there. It is not something that you say; it is also something that you do. Sympathy can be what you say, but empathy is what you do.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Neil. Mio, you would like to ask something?
Yes. I would like to ask. There's it's a norm for companies to be founded in recessions, much like the 2008 recession with WhatsApp, Instagram, and Groupon. Hypothetically speaking, if I, a 22-year-old, very new fetus in the industry, uh, had built a more comprehensive e-commerce platform, um, what are the ways that I can um, build my brand, or even more so in the comfort of my home since I can't go out right now?
Okay. Mior, I hope you don't mind. Just restate your question. I'm not entirely sure what the question is. Sorry.
Okay. How do I build my own brand when I'm very new and to the industry?
What you mean you as a brand?
Yes, correct.
Okay. And which industry are you referring to specifically?
So let's say the e-commerce platform industry.
Okay. Um, are you good at it?
Well, yes.
Okay, great.
I would say it's a more comprehensive platform as compared to the previous ones.
Great. Because e-commerce, okay, let me answer something about e-commerce at this stage. If there's anything that is prospering right now in this particular dynamic, in today's dynamic, it's e-commerce. We're seeing Shopee and Lazada, for example, their e-commerce traffic has increased by 60% average. That's a lot. They're not even on sale. It's just the dynamic of the day. And then in terms of consumer engagement on e-commerce, it has increased by 37%. Now also a lot of companies who are in the e-commerce space are saying to themselves, "Thank goodness I'm in the e-commerce space. Thank goodness I have a marketplace." There are others who are not in the marketplace and are saying, "Darn it, why am I not in a marketplace?" So you can imagine how big e-commerce will be uh, to this market. And it's just a matter of time for this new normal to become the old normal. So that's the e-commerce conversation. Now, if you're good in e-commerce, you have a fantastic advantage because if there's any dearth of talent, it is a dearth of talent on how to get e-commerce to run. Right now, I'm working with a number of experts on e-commerce, but when I say a number of experts, I'm only speaking about, let's say, 3 or 4 people, right? In a company of about 400 people, a company of 4 to 500 people, I have only 4 e-commerce experts. When the promise of e-commerce, the promise of business of e-commerce is going to be much larger. So you can imagine the talent or the dearth of talent or the want of talent when it comes to e-commerce space. Now, do you need to meet people? Do you need to meet people? Yeah, of course you need to meet people. People have to know you. But the good thing about the good thing about you and e-commerce, and if you're good at it, is you can let your work speak for you. And it's just a matter of you being able to articulate in your case what subject you're interested in, what problem, demonstrate what the problem is, and how you can solve it in relation to e-commerce. And your output will speak of how good or how not good you are, and then a conversation will take place later. But that's just to give you a perspective on what kind of demand e-commerce has in today's normal. And I think, and we all think, and in the industry, thinks that this is going to be the new goalpost. Where something as well, all SMEs will also get into e-commerce, not just big companies. Yeah.
Okay.
So on the side, Mior, if you want to talk about that further, we can have a conversation.
Okay.
All right. I would like to open for last questions.
I think
Almost
there's two more, right?
one from TT only.
One
TT.
from-
Yes. So there's a long question from Suzu actually.
Sorry. Hi, Mr.
Hi,
Neal.
TT. Hi.
Yes. Sorry
You're
about
the Italy girl, right?
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd like to start my questions by just a little bit background about myself. So, Mr. Neal, I have passions for branding, but I don't know how to practice a tangible skills for it. So I got into copywriting, right? So I in my spare time I love to write, at least mock writing for brands I like, such as Cartier, Visa, Milo, Leica, every brand that I like. But as I'm writing and do extensive research about the brand, the history, the keywords, and what makes them resonate to their customers, I feel like the lines are getting blurred between branding and copywriting, and not in terms of practice, but in terms of emotional attachment in doing it. So my questions is actually, there are two questions, I'm sorry, but I'm really curious about first, how and where should someone start their career in branding, particularly branding communication? And my second question is that what are other skills I need other than the pre-existing copywriting and marketing skills?
Okay. I'll answer the second question first.
Yeah, sure.
There are two things that you must have, and I don't know how to express this except this way. One, you need to be curious. You cannot have any boundaries. Number two is you need to be hungry. Now, the reason why I said curious and curiosity and hunger is because you seem to be putting copywriting in one special space. But to your point, the lines of copywriting are really getting blurred, right?
Yeah.
Even the lines of branding are getting blurred. Back in the day, when we would put things in compartments, we would think that branding is in one place and marketing is in another. Or branding is in one place and tactical campaigns are another. Those territories are now becoming one.
Yeah.
Not in silos anymore. So, and this is because time is so important. Everyone is so impatient. So everyone is also very impatient to make money for their brands. So we don't build brand films anymore. Let's say we have a credit card campaign for Maybank. We don't say Maybank's credit cards are the best ever. We don't say that anymore. We show it, right? It's now in the form of either tactical campaign or a promotion campaign. Credit cards to tide you over during Raya, for example. Now, is there a branding component to that? It's now combined with a tactical campaign. Now, when I say branding, when I say campaign, keep in mind too that all campaigns are now moving digitally. The principles are still the same. The human truths are still the same. The place of authenticity is still the same. Nothing has changed. That has not changed at all. That will stay. withstand time. But the approaches to get there is already different. And the reason why I have to impress this on you is when you do copy, don't think of copy in relation to just TV. Don't just think of copy in relation to just a print ad. Now you have to think of copy in relation to a story to tell, right? Now you have to think of copy in relation to how you can manage creatives dynamically. Because remember, creatives at the back end, the creative that you see is probably different from the creatives that Neal sees, because it depends again on what your digital habits are. What your digital habits are, and creatives will be served to you accordingly. So again, be mindful that the creative, you will have to look at multiple creatives saying ultimately the same message. Can you just hold on for a moment? Just give me a moment.
Sure.
So sorry. So when you think of copywriting in relation to digital assets. Think of copywriting in relation to search. Think of copywriting in relation to dynamic creatives. There are many ways of writing copy now, and it's not just a traditional 30-second way. Number one. Number two, don't just look at copywriting as an end in itself. It has to be seen as part of a larger framework. Your framework is your story. So you have to think not just in relation to language, but you also think in relation to visuals, because you have a full story to tell.
Yeah.
So if I may kind of course correct you, you look at it when you look at branding, yes, but look at how brands are now being built. They are now being built more quickly. Look at copywriting, yes, but widen your sphere. Look at storytelling instead. And use your strength in copy to be able to tell that story better.
Okay, noted.
Great.
All right, thank you, Mr. Neal.
Most welcome.
There are students asking something about Vivi Yusof. Shamira or Surina, you would like to ask questions?
They are very excited to watch this topic with you.
Vivi Yusof, my gosh, she's one of the best people ever, I swear.
Did you not read students' comments on the site, Mr. Neal? Okay, go ahead. You don't have to filter students.
What do you think about Vivi Yusof newly controversial thing that it stated that she has been copying local business design in a way, like
what do I think about that?
Yeah, Larry.
Well, any publicity is good publicity. That's what I think. Just kind of just a behind the scenes story on that one. Will it hurt her brand? It probably will for a short time. But the good thing about Vivi Yusuf's brand is it's formidable. She started from a place of authenticity. She knew who she was. She built from her own personality. She had a consistent set of behaviors, and she built a business model. Now, is she going to get? Is she going to have? Is she going to get in trouble with this claim? Yeah, she will be. But I think it's just going to be a blip. I can tell you how this is kind of a behind-the-scenes story. I can tell you how vicious the Malay entertainment community is behind the scenes. they are vicious.
Okay.
It's very competitive. But by the fact that her brand is very strong, by the fact that she has built her brand on very firm grounding and very authentic grounding, she will survive.
But at the end of the day, right now, all of the influencers as well give out their opinions regarding on Vivi Yusof new controversial thing going on, and I believe that a lot of people have been like boycotting her brand in a way. So how Vivi should like deal with it?
I honestly don't. I honestly don't know, because I don't know. I can only guess. And I think the only way to handle this is to handle this with elegance. Um, she has to handle this with a lot of grace and a lot of elegance. She cannot be fully defensive. She can also not be fully offensive, but she has to be really truthful. So
But
if it's true, then own it and figure out the way to manage it. If it's not true, then deny it, and that's it, right? But whether you own it and admit to it or deny it, you have to do it elegantly. And she is in that brand space where elegance or grace are partner.
I mean, okay, for that particular issue, should like Vivi Yusuf just apologize to the designer and like clarify everything, because right now Vivi Yusuf have been defensive due to that, so the local artists have been like very devastated, like situation right now.
Yeah,
Like in a way like Vivi Yusuf always said like support your local business and stuff like that, but at the same time she has been like in a way um plagiarism in for that, like I don't know how to explain it.
well, ironically, she did support local by copying, right?
Mhm.
No, but that's a side story. There's nothing. I cannot offer anything strategic about that situation. That's for sure. But the only thing that I know is that this too shall pass. And we've seen a lot of personalities, not just in entertainment, not just in business, but also in politics, also in our own spheres, where we all get into very negative spaces. But they will die. The moment will die, and you will recover. How she will recover from this, I won't know. That's for her to figure out. But if you ask me what will she do, no, I don't. I won't have a credible answer for that.
Yeah, I feel like when you mentioned that she needs to handle this case elegantly, that's where I feel like that she needs to start focusing on, because
Yeah,
at the moment, if you were to follow, I don't really follow her, but I know her because my friends keep on talking about the case, and I know, as you can see, the students are excited about it.
yeah,
Any publicity is always a good publicity, but she does seems quite defensive. So I believe that could jeopardize a little bit her brand. That, like you
yeah,
mentioned, it starts from an authentic ground, and then it does affect her brand a little bit on the eyes of her followers. But I feel like somehow, because of these methods, she does increase her followers. From people who
yeah,
don't know her, suddenly they tend to know her, and then they tend to want to find out what more about her. And the next thing right now perhaps she's on the lower end of people's trust, but because of that, this intriguing things that new people who don't know anything suddenly know, tend to perhaps get sucked into her brand again. So we'll never know.
yep, yep. You're right. We'll never know. That's why it's but to your point, right? It's all wait and see. Number one. Number two is the only way to handle something very controversial as this is either to keep quiet or to just respond elegantly.
Yes, exactly. So like what the students are mentioned, publicity stunt, a dirtier marketing strategy. I feel like students, the moment you start to work in the industry, the moment you start to feel how other people are being dirty, you yourself feel like you need to do a bit of publicity stunt. But obviously we're looking at a viewer's perspective. So followers, we want something authentic. We want the nice fairy tale story, but behind the scene, all these influencers, they don't have. It's not an easy job, to maintain people's respect, and especially when, like Mr. Neil said, people are very vicious out there. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't matter. Do you want to be controversial? Go ahead. Do you want to be nice? Go ahead. Do you want to to be anything you want, go ahead. But just be sure that you can carry it through, number one. Number two, everything will always come back to you. And I've experienced this over time. So whatever you do, you always do things with integrity. And that's why I'm saying place of authenticity. You always do things with true self-belief, right? That this is you. And it will come out. Do not, people do this a lot. A lot of influencers do this, do all these publicity stunts, but they always end up flat on their faces because it doesn't work. It can work for a while, but it doesn't work over time.
Yes, exactly. Any other students? Anything else?
I'm seeing a lot of questions. Oh, wait.
It's more of a discussion, a hot.
Oh, it's a story of Vivi Yusof.
Yes, it is.
All right, here's the deal. So I think we're done. But if you have any questions on the subject, by all means, email me directly. I can respond to you. I will be able to respond to you directly. Melina, please share my email address to him.
Yeah, sure. I'll share your email address with all the students.
Yeah. And if there are any questions on this subject, I will answer them rightly. If there are any questions on Vivi Yusof, I have to get some friends to respond on your behalf. Because I only know of her and I know her through friends, but I don't know her personally. I can always ask my Astro friends, okay, tell me the scoop on Vivi Yusof so I can share.
Okay, but thank you so much for
thank you.
time. Thank you so much. I hope the rest of the students, manage to learn something about this. Amelina, back to you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Neal, and also thank you for the after webinar offer to us to respond to questions from students.
Sure.
Yeah. So on behalf of FCAM, I would like to say thank you for the time and the knowledge shared with all. So hope we can see later at uni after MCO.
Yes, why not? I would love to meet you.
Yes, we cannot wait to start the official. We were supposed to start soon, but because of the quarantine, so yeah.
Yeah, and I'm so tired of weak internet connections. I want to see an office very soon.
Exactly.
All right, for the students, thank you for joining. So I see you guys later. I don't know when, but I see you guys later. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.